Hello everyone. Welcome to the Syed School. Today, we will learn about the topic ROAS, router on a stick. Let's consider this topology. We have 4 VLANs here. We know that different VLANs could not communicate with each other, and usually different VLANs will be in different subnets. So, we need to use router to route the packets from one subnet to another subnet. Here we have 4 VLANs, so we need 4 router ports to route the packets. What if we use 12 VLANs? Can we shrink these links into one link so that only one router port is used? The answer is yes. We can use router on a stick configuration. What does ROAS do? Instead of using one router port per VLAN, router uses a trunk which has subinterface concept. Router port acts as subinterface per VLAN. One subinterface connects to one VLAN and route the packets. If we use n VLANs, then we need to configure n subinterfaces. Let's look at this ROAS topology. We configured switch port as trunk port. To configure the router trunk port, we need to configure subinterfaces. Here, we have configured 4 subinterfaces F4 by 0. F4 by 0.2, F4 by 0.3, F4 by 0.4. We need to assign IP address of the respective VLAN subnets to the subinterfaces, like for subinterface F4 by 0.2, we use VLAN 2 subnet address. Here we use 4 subnets as shown here. The subnet ID prefix is /28 here. Here are the commands to configure the subinterfaces. Interface type and number and .subinterface number. We can use any number, however, it is easy to use the VLAN number here. Then comes the encapsulation command with VLAN ID. This command tells the router subinterface about the VLAN traffic. I mean which VLAN traffic will be in and out of this subinterface. Next is the IP address command. Every subinterface has an IP address of the connected VLAN subnet. For the native VLANs, we need to skip the .subinterface number and the encapsulation command. This skipping tells the subinterface that it is in the native VLAN. If the native VLAN is a non-default VLAN, I mean if it is not VLAN 1, then we need to specify in the command that it is native. We need to add the word native at the end of the encapsulation command, and we add .subinterface number 2. Let's configure this topology. Please remember the interface number of the router and the switch. And the subnets. Let's go to the switch and configure the trunk port. Now to the router and configure the subinterfaces. We configure the native VLAN interface F4/0 here, so no encapsulation command. We use VLAN 1 subnet here. Now, let's configure VLAN 2 subinterface. We use .2 subinterface here and encapsulation command with VLAN ID. We use VLAN 2 subnet IP address here. Let's use show IP route to check the connected routes. We see that VLAN 1 subnet is connected to the native subinterface. We see local host of this subnet, which will be the default gateway of VLAN 1. Similarly, VLAN 2 subnet connected to the subinterface .2. We see local host of the second subnet, which will be the default gateway of VLAN 2. Now, let's go to the hosts and configure the IP addresses and default gateway according to the VLANs. Let's assign subnet 1 IP address to this VLAN 1 host. We also assign the default gateway address, which is the address of the native subinterface, as this is VLAN 1. Let's go to the VLAN 2 now. We have assigned subnet 2 address, and the default gateway will be the address of .2 subinterface. Now, add the host 2 port to VLAN 2 in switch. Let's ping host 2 from VLAN 2 from host 1 in VLAN 1 to confirm that they can communicate using ROAS. We see that using router on a stick, we can let the VLANs communicate. Similarly, we can configure the VLAN 3 and 4 in this topology.